Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dancing with Damage. I'm Ian, your resident philosopher.
And I'm Abby, your resident author.
And today, we talk social media as per the philosophy of Le Social Blueprint, which is French for the social blueprint.
It's not French for the social blueprint.
No, but, you know, it has that allure. And we were watching the news the other day, Abby and I, and it came up about a potential social media ban for children under the age of 16 in Canada, similar to what Australia is up to. And we thought, well, let's talk about that. So, Abby, why don't we start with this? Mm-hmm. Just as many high school debate teams have launched their arguments by quoting the Oxford Dictionary. Let us say they were debating gravel. They would say the Oxford Dictionary defines gravel as
tiny rocks. I don't know.
Little bitty tiny rocks. And then they'd go from there. And it's funny how we lose that actually in more, I guess, adult discussions. I mean, gravel is an adult. It's a mature subject.
I mean, maybe. I don't know if anyone's really having hard-hitting discussions about tiny rocks, but maybe I stand to be corrected. Maybe I'm just not hanging out with the cool people.
That's true. If the conversation around your local bar is gravel, that's pretty interesting. So anyway, no, we are going to focus on social media. So what, Abby, would you say is an example of social media? And we'll work on a definition, and then we'll go from there about our question for the episode, which is what to do about social media.
So I think of social media as a platform where you post something on the internet and it is transmitted to sort of everybody. It's like a widespread way you can communicate with many people at once. And all of those people have the ability to comment or immediately respond to what you said in a very informal and often anonymous way.
I like that. Abby has identified it is via the internet. It is widespread. Mm-hmm. It has the ability for its audience to react to it and react to the person who emitted the message. And this is really distinct from former methods of traditional media, newspaper, les books.
Can you imagine if you were watching TV and you start yelling at the TV? No one can hear you. Can you imagine if the actors could hear you? Every time someone didn't like a face they pulled or a way they tried to show an emotion, they could just hear everyone going, that sucked, you know? That'd be pretty funny, actually.
That would be, yeah. That'd sort of be like reality TV, but
as a conversation.
Probably not as good. So, yes, that is what social media is. And some popular examples you can think of when we think of social media would be
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube.
I have run out of fingers, so let us end there.
I don't think I know anymore.
That's good. That worked out perfectly. All right, so next question. Abby, you are someone who keeps their fingers to the pulse of news and different perspectives on these kind of things. I sort of live beneath a rock. We did discuss this at some point earlier.
Patrick from SpongeBob. Yes, you're a rock.
I am a rock. I'm not Patrick under the rock. Apparently I am the rock, which is even worse because Patrick could leave under the rock, but the rock stays a rock forever. But that's okay. As a rock, I ask you, a non-rock, what do we say, or what does the scientific community say, or what do you say about what the issues are with social media? Why is there this ban that people are talking about?
There's a few. One is the issue of parasocial relationships. So humans crave the wings of love, you know, codependency and proximity, and you need other humans to have those things. So a lot of anxiety has arisen and people don't like leaving their homes, and it's so much easier and without stress or without stakes to go online and talk to people and interact with videos and pictures online that are often computer generated because you can be anonymous. So if you say something, no one can say, you made a mistake and make fun of you, kind of the fear a lot of people have in elementary school or in high school, being made fun of or being bullied. So people create parasocial relationships online, or there's a creator who's very big, and people feel, because the creator shares a lot about their lives, that they have a relationship with this person who may not know they exist, because you can't really see online, who's following you, and you don't see every comment, and you don't know them personally, but you feel like you know them. So it's sort of substituting for real human interaction. And then beyond that, there is an increase in things like AI and fake information and people just sharing their opinions. And it's leading to things like people getting fired from their jobs. There's been a rash of nurses who take videos of themselves in the operating room doing TikToks. And the hospitals are saying, you can't, HIPAA, come on, you can't do that. That is a violation. And teachers taking videos of their students in classrooms, which is just a terrible idea. And they're getting fired too. So it's not a good thing, I think, is my summary.
Not a good thing. We know that there is a strong correlation between use of social media and a feeling of isolation and loneliness, anxiety, depression, and various other social skills that are being tamped down. Now, Abby, the social blueprint, of which you are a co-author. It says so on the cover. Therefore, I say to you, do you remember that chapter about the carpenter and the apprentice where there was a table with 4 legs?
I do.
And what were the 4 legs that represented a stable human life?
Shelter, food, water, and positive relationships.
I thought for a second she was going to say shellfish as the first leg. And I was like, oh, that's deep. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love a good
crustacean.
I don't know if like crustaceans count as shellfish. I don't know. Don't quote me. I do like crab and lobster. I'm a big fan of that. I know Abby is not. I mean, look, I'll be the first to admit it. Crab and lobster are essentially just vehicles to get the butter and lemon into your face as like seamlessly as possible, because there is a nice sweet flavor to them, but let's be real. I just want to eat butter. But I think shellfish, it's more like clams and mussels and oysters.
I know. I was trying to be funny because fish are mostly things in the water. I know there's caveats to that, but it's shelled fish. Mm-hmm. So in my head, anything that has a shell and fish is about is like it's shellfish. It is the fish of the shell.
A lot of people are looking around for fish with shells. So anyway, that's right. So there was the table, positive relationships, one of those legs. And we know this to be true because we see, for example, elderly people, as soon as you take away positive relationships, which is kind of the first time in a human's life where it's an option, traditionally, to have that leg pulled out from under you, we see that person start to decline very quickly.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing that leg be pulled out from the table in young people feeling isolation at an age where never before has isolation been a threat. So, Abby, I was thinking about social media, and I think you said
Parasocial.
Parasocial. I thought she said parasympathetic, which it's like...
different.
Yeah, it's not the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system, I think, is where you deliberately move things, or it's your breathing. Don't quote me, don't do surgery.
Those are different.
Well, it was always... Anyway, maybe parasympathetic is... Anyway, it doesn't matter. What is important is if you think about how social media it's like an illusion of the table leg, like a projection of it, because it appears like the leg to the damaged brain, to the eyes of the damaged subconscious. But if you tried to feel for it, it would be like those holograms on Star Wars, you know?
I like that. That was good. That was a good metaphor. He throws out metaphors all the time, and sometimes I'm not sure what's going on, but I like that one.
Excellent, because here's another. Try this on for size. It reminds us of somebody fishing off a dock. And they want to catch a fish for dinner because they want to fulfill themselves. They want to be fulfilled with the flesh of the fish. A lot of people do like fish, Abby, okay? You have to just work with me here. So they're fishing off the dock and they catch a bunch of sunfish.
Little tiny sunfish?
Very tiny. So you may have in your, especially childhood years or fishing with a young child, you go to a dock, you catch these little tiny sunfish. They're not good to eat. They're not going to fill you. But if you go into a boat and you go to the lake, you can catch a delicious trout or something. And that would really fulfill you if you ate it. And so that's a little bit like how social media is like fishing for the sunfish. You can spend all day doing it, but no matter what you catch, it's not going to fill you.
I can even deepen that metaphor, which is also a water joke.
Deeper than a lake?
It also works because
Sometimes her hand crosses the back. We have a territory, okay? I think it's pretty clear. When I go for my coffee,
I gesticulate a lot. But parasocial relationships and generally interactions on social media are usually very surface level. And part of the reason human relationships are so beautiful, I was thinking about this. I was talking to one of my best friends the other day, and I had something really sad happen to me in my life personally, and I was just not feeling great about it. And I talked to her about it, and she made me feel so much better. And I realized while I was talking to her, I know her so well. We've known each other for almost 20 years, and she knows a lot about me. I know a lot about her. And because we've known each other for so long and we've had a great relationship, we've talked about things like our fears and our wants and our dreams and our perspectives. And we've tackled hard subjects like,
like rocks. That's a hard subject.
like our views on money and our views on relationships and the kind of things we've talked about in a previous episode where we said you should talk about these things before you get married to somebody. But these are the kind of subjects that humans kind of crave, that intimacy, that knowing someone so well, so that when you have something in your life you want to discuss, someone automatically knows where you're coming from. They know sort of how you might see a subject, they might know how to best comfort you. And I felt really good at the end of the conversation because she cared about me so deeply, and she knew. She came out with a few things to say, and she helped me recognize my perspective and realize where I might have made mistakes, and really sort of reinforced what Ian had also told me to make me feel better. Just really good life advice that was tailored to me. And that's sort of like a trout deep in the lake. Like, you take the time to have a deep and meaningful relationship. So when something happens in your life and you want to talk about it, the other person automatically knows. They know what your perspective's probably going to be. They're probably going to know how you're going to react to certain things. They know what things help you feel better. They know what subjects to avoid when you're feeling kind of sad and vulnerable. It's someone who's designed to help you feel better. And social media is like those little sunfish because you never really get to know somebody, because even if a person shares a lot about their life online, they don't share everything. They often don't share the bad, or if they share the bad, they share it in a cinematic way that's designed for entertainment and views and often rage bait. So to have a relationship with another human where you actually get to know them, all sides of them in an honest way, that's missing entirely from social media. I have not seen any example of somebody who shows their whole self on social media in an honest way. I don't think it's possible because as humans, it's too vulnerable to show that much of our souls and ourselves to everybody on the internet. It's supposed to be a special thing shared between people who trust each other. So that's my extension of your metaphor.
That was very extensive. And you shouldn't call your friend a trout.
I didn't know. I said our relationship was like the trout. No, she's one of the best humans ever. 10 out of 10.
Spanish, trout is trucha. I just always like that word.
How do you know that?
How would you not know that? Because it's such a fun word. You have to learn it right away and remember it.
One more time.
Trucha.
I can't roll my R's, so I will not be able to say that.
Abby would call it a trucha.
Trucha.
But if you're on the Bingy side of things, that is a name I go by sometimes, Bingy. Although,
not Trucha.
No, although if I was a Spanish villain, I could be El Trucha. Would I inspire fear?
No.
No. So Abby makes a good point. And she also is describing another aspect of the social blueprint. And again, we want to give you our analysis of these social issues through the lens of the social blueprint, because when Abby and I look at the explanations that are offered by different media sources and different people, and there are lots of good and valid arguments, but sometimes when you poke them with the logic stick, it doesn't hold. But we like the social blueprint theory because it seems to hold a lot of water when you need it to.
And fish.
Tons of fish. They live in the water. That's good, Abby. That's very sharp. So in terms of what Abby's describing about her friend, you can also look at it by looking at love. The definition of love is the foundation of those positive relationships. And again, love is the ability for one party to make a sacrifice for the well-being of person B and vice versa. I often think of it like a contract. So, for example, in law, the retainer agreement or the contract between the parties might be, I will represent you and you will pay me this sum of money. So if both people uphold their end of the bargain, everyone's happy, the contract is fulfilled. And love is like that. Not quite so cut and dry, and obviously not quite so sterile, but in essence, our theory is, and what we argue is that two entities who share proximity and codependence will say, okay, we share this relationship, we can make a mutual understanding that if you need something, I will make a sacrifice to help you, and in exchange, I expect the same thing. It's very rare to feel love for someone who you're willing to make sacrifices for, who won't do it in return. So for example, Abby, let's say you had a parent, your parents are great. So this has nothing to do with this is hypothetical.
Yeah, no issue. If you met them, you would also love them. They're just adorable. They're little British people and they're so nice and they just want to bring you snacks and they come and they just want to help. Mm-hmm. That's their whole thing. They just like, how can I help you? They're sort of the embodiment of love.
Okay, so the parents are always showing love to Abby. They're always saying, we're going to show up, use our time, money, freedom to try and make your life better.
Yeah, it's their whole thing. It's pretty great.
Now, if you kept turning your back on them and spitting on the gifts they brought you and making their lives harder, do you think eventually that their love could sour a bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They know their worth because they're worth a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's what social media can't bring to the table, is that contract of love. Ergo, we have the hologram of the table leg, and ergo, we are left with little sunfish feeling...
Little sunfish?
Little sunfish, and no one is feeling full. And their souls wither because their souls have nothing to eat. They cannot eat the sunfish. It's too bony and gross. And
slam on sunfish.
Boom. Well, there's a reason. Abigail. It says on the
Oh, is that what it is, Tim?
Abigail. I know you don't eat fish at restaurants, but have you ever gone to a restaurant where sunfish is on the menu? You might have seen salmon, trout, sea bass, perch, walleye, cod, all these fish. You never see sunfish. Conspiracy? No, they're gross. So anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, I mean, maybe you do. Maybe there's some fancy like 3-star Michelin chef who's just like, mais oui, it is the finest of the finned fish. But I don't think so. Also,
Savage.
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently Michelin chefs are all that French chef from The Little Mermaid.
That's who I thought you were channeling, actually.
Yeah.
This makes me want to watch The 100-Foot Journey, where no one is French, but it's about Michelin star chefs. It's very good.
You know what? It is what it is. So let's talk a bit about Australia. Australia, a year ago, put in a ban that people under the age of 16 couldn't use social media like the platforms Abby described, TikTok, etc. As a side note, Canada's considering this because the average screen time for someone between the ages of 17 and 35 has gone up to about 11 hours a day.
That's insane.
It's insane. It seems like such a large number and you wouldn't credit it at first, but of course they're including screen time for jobs. But then about 4 hours of that 11 hours is still leisure time, screen time. And then for children, so people up to the age of 17, I think in Canada it was about 4 or 5 hours a day.
That's pretty much all of their spare time because they have to go to class. They're trying to sneak their phones in class, but I mean, 8 hours of the day is sort of them in school. Mm-hmm. And then presumably 8 hours is them asleep, so that's 16 hours. That leaves 8 hours to do everything else, including bathing and eating and getting ready for school and talking to friends and doing homework and everything else that is involved in a life, probably a part-time job. So if it's that high, that's a lot of their free time.
It's a lot of free time. They're at the docks fishing for sunfish when they should be out catching the trout. Or, as they say in Spain, el trucha.
I do like that.
I really hope trucha is masculine and gets the L and not the la. It's probably la trucha. Don't look it up. Okay.
I'm totally going to look it up.
Don't look it up because I have a 50% chance and I'm terrible at coin tosses. So that reminded me of a different shelled creature, Abby. I want to talk about what Australia did because they did a little tally this year because their policy is about, I think, a year old or something like that. Apparently 75% of young people are still using social media. I mean, 25% reduction is not bad. It's not nothing. But it reminded me of how a young person who we want to protect from the hazards of the modern world. There's so many hazards these days. Social media, sedentary lifestyle, high sugar causing diabetes, problematic weight, obesity, and things like that. And then all the mental health issues that come along with it. Plus, they're facing the issues of affordability and the job market collapsing and AI encroaching and climate change and global instability and all these things. So young people are really very vulnerable, and it made me think of a turtle. Yes? There's a lot of shelled creatures this episode. We want to shelter you. Wait, I was going to say shelter them from the truth, but it's like that. We don't.
The opposite.
We want to unshell. I wonder what a turtle. Okay, I think a turtle's shell is actually connected to its ribs.
It is. They grow it.
But has a turtle ever been born without a shell? And what would that look like? I mean, if it was healthy and the skin just grew over the ribs and there was just no shell cells, it would look really silly.
Like those albino raccoons. Have you ever seen the albino raccoons online? They exist and they look so funny without the face markings we come to know.
Oh, yeah.
They look like a totally different creature. You're not sure what creature, but it's a different one. You would never guess raccoon.
A turtle would look tortoisely different. So the turtle. How does the turtle make its way in the world and survive from the dangers of... I think raccoons might eat turtles. Certainly they eat their eggs, but the foxes and different creatures. Well, first things first, the turtle is what color, Abby?
Green.
It's a green, usually a murky green color. And so if you've ever been on a lake or a pond and seen a turtle and it moves or goes beneath the surface at all, it's like ghost, right? This is like special forces turtle. You are not seeing that turtle again. It blends in so well with water, and this is no accident. That is his first line of defense. Can't see that guy. Secondly, it's in the water. So right away, you've got an advantage over land-based predators like bears or wolves or
Foxes.
foxes, right? They're not doggy paddling out to come get this turtle. Turtle is doing backstroke around them, spraying those water fountains out of its mouth you see in movies, right? They're not worried about doggy paddling because land-based animals need their leverage in their paws to put pressure on things. So in case in point, if you've ever seen like a boxer or a wrestler, if you threw them in a pool of water, I'm sure they'd do pretty well still, but I don't think they'd be as bad. I think they'd just be more wet, probably frustrated. So that is the second line of defense, is the turtle is in the pond. And number 3 is the turtle's shell. So even if the predator is able to get across the water and find the camouflaged turtle, it still has to deal with the shell. So that put me in mind of a young person because really the shell that the social blueprint talks about is having enough love in their subconscious so that their damage is reduced, so that these young people are not falling into the obvious traps of social media, vaping, sedentary lifestyle, all these problematic behaviors. Because young people are quite intelligent, I find these days. They're aware of the issues and there's warning labels about all these things and educational campaigns about all these things. Right, Abby? And probably when you were teaching in high school, there was lots of awareness about the dangers of these things, right?
Yeah, but there is an element of everyone's doing it, so it can't be that bad. And there's also an element of it's future me's problem and who cares. And then there's also a gambling aspect where it can happen, but will it? And when you're young, you can feel invincible, and it feels like problems like that are imaginary in somebody else's life. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty easy to sort of ignore all of those seminars and warning labels.
That's right. Damage can blind someone in a sense to that. But even at that tender age, it's really the first time in history we see young people under the age of 16 throwing away their lives en masse like this, like lemmings off a cliff. Because if you're doing the kind of things that young people are doing now, there's problems with, for example, distributing images, intimate images, starting drugs that are going to affect their brains their whole lives, and being addicted to social media and becoming just someone who's not going to be equipped to handle the real world at all. These are not things that even teenagers, reckless as they tend to be, have been doing traditionally. So first of all, the shell is enough love in a system so that the young person doesn't destroy themselves as much as they're doing. The second thing is the water, the camouflage. That's supposed to be like the parents who are hiding their child from society to some extent and are trying to guide them as much as you can guide a teenager. But there is still some pull the teenager has, right? You have to be home by 11. Oh, Mom, I hate you. But kid's still back by 11, right? Or 11:10. But it's like they're not out till 4. So the parents still have are supposed to still have some sway over them. And then the third thing is in the lake is like, or the pond is like the government, and they're supposed to help that whole situation. And so what Australia is doing reminds me of the pond creating an environment where there's a ban, but it's not going to work if the first 2 levels are not there. So in this example, there's a pond of water, but because of damage, the turtle is bright yellow, easy to find, think of like a highlighter in the water, and 2 has no shell. So predators are still going to get that. And that's important because what do we say in the book, Abby, about dandelions?
You have to pull them out by the root, because if you don't, they're just going to keep growing back.
Bingo. So we applaud what Australia is doing, but we also recognize that it is like a gardener who wants to clear a lawn of dandelions, but does so by taking scissors and snipping off the heads of all the dandelions. They're always just going to grow back in very short order.
Wouldn't they just use a lawnmower?
This gardener is a true believer in
Cheers.
in decapitating dandelions. He doesn't like them. He is el trucha. I don't know. He runs over them with a lawnmower. I guess that's fine too.
Well, it's more realistic for those grappling to understand your metaphors.
Yeah, no, that could make sense. But we see, even in Australia and in other countries, first there was a problem with vaping. And I'm going back to Australia now. If you look it up, you'll see that during COVID, vaping was a huge problem with young people. Some legislation came in or some policy came in, and that was able to diminish. Now social media is the issue, policies brought in. It's going to diminish likely or not likely, who knows. But the issue is that the root cause of what's endangering young people and everyone in developed nations is not being addressed. There is still a massive self-destructive system in most of the people growing up, if not all the people growing up, in the world of unmoderated technology, where love has essentially been exiled or relegated to the back corner. And so I guess what I'm saying, Abby, to answer our question about what to do about social media, is legislating a ban is not going to be truly effective. Even if it's effective for social media to some extent, the next problem is going to rear its head, like the Hydra that Hercules fought. You chop off one head, create 2 more. It's not an efficient use of resources and it doesn't help the people you're trying to help. So that would be my thought.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. And damage will continue to persist and find new ways to harm you, even if a substance or a platform becomes inaccessible to you. But I will say that if you take away the obvious ways someone can damage themselves, it does make it harder for damage to find a new thing. And then there will be a period of time where maybe there is nothing it's doing to hurt itself. And if en masse, these damaged policies and these damaged platforms are taken away or limited, it will help, because the more you're on social media, the more your damage is almost exacerbated, because the more you're limiting love in your life. So while it might not be enough to fix damage, putting in the policy to show love will have an impact. And limiting social media, especially if many countries can do it, will be effective in lowering the damage, at least a little bit, increasing the love in somebody's life, and giving the people more time before damage finds a new way to damage itself. So it is positive in a way. It is worth doing. It's just not the whole solution.
So Abby makes a good point. I want to make one more point before we round off, and it's more to do with the social blueprint as a concept, because one thing that's very common we hear from young people and see affecting them is a sense of hopelessness, a sense of impending doom for their generation. And if we were to extend the turtle metaphor a bit, Abby, it would be like if not only did you have the predators sort of at the outskirts of the pond, you also had like this giant crocodile suspended from a hot air balloon above the turtle's pond. And the shadow was always just looming, and the turtle always knew at some point the crocodile might drop down and get them, you see? And so a crocodile hovering above you would be very terrifying, but also its stubby legs would kick. And I can only assume that's how it navigates and it directs the hot air balloon. So it moves like this. That's fine. So why we thank you for checking out our videos and for potentially picking up the social blueprint is because we believe this is a social plan which is fairly clear-cut, fairly detailed in terms of a lengthy, it is a long-term plan to fix the underlying issues that plague society. And it may not be the plan that society chooses to go with, but what is important is people like you who support a plan. It doesn't really matter which one, but if there's people to rally around a flag and prop it up on a battlefield, then there's hope for that army to keep marching and prevail against the foe. Or another way to think about it, Abby, is do you remember that episode of The Office, a show we both quite like?
Yeah.
And there is an episode in The Office where Dwight stages a false fire, and there's a fire drill and no one is ready for it and no one knows the drill and they all injure each other, or I think Stanley has a heart attack, and it's very stressful. And so the young generation and the generations to come having a plan like the social blueprint is like people in a building that's on fire who know the exit strategy, like the fire drills we had when we were in school when we were young. You know, everyone stays together, you go on a line, you don't say too much, you just go to the parking lot. And that is like having a plan versus having no plan. And it means that the young generation will be like that group in the fire drill, and most of them will make it out okay and everything will be all right, versus the other group who are just gonna injure themselves and chaos will flow. And so we want to be that plan with the social blueprint. And so we thank you again for supporting us as you do, because that way the next generation can push away that crocodile and push it out, and the gas will flow out of the hot air balloon and the crocodile will land somewhere and not be hanging over the heads of those poor turtles in the future.
So thanks for hanging out with us. We hope you have a great day.